Hey guys, welcome to Teach Me Math. Today we're going to be talking about how to solve quadratic equations by factoring. So to do that, we're going to look at a couple of examples and work through them step by step. Alright, so in our first example over here, we have this equation x minus 6 all squared minus 8x is equal to 0. Our first step for any factoring quadratic equations, we should always have it in the standard form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So to do that for example number 1, we're going to first need to expand this and then simplify it. So when it's expanded, this is going to end up being x squared minus 12x plus 36 minus 8x is equal to 0. And then you add the minus 12x and the minus 8x, that's going to be minus 20x plus 36 is equal to 0. So the coefficient of the x squared is a 1, okay? That's important to know. We don't need to do anything with that, but it's important to keep track of because there are some cases where the coefficient of x squared is not equal to 1. But in this case it is. So let's just focus on c, right? Which is 36 in this case. What we need to do is we need to find the factors of 36, right? So we have 1 and 36. So what multiplied by what gives us 36? 1 and 36. 2, 18, 3, 12, 4, 9, right? 5 doesn't, 6, 6. Alright, and then let's stop that. Alright, so the next step is to focus on this number over here, our b. So this column, alright, so let's call this column m, and then we'll call this column n. Okay, so m multiplied by n should give us 36. M plus n should give us a 20, alright, or m minus n, some addition or subtraction of m and n should give us 20. So 1 and 36, if you add it, it's 37, if you subtract it's 35, that doesn't work, so this is not it. 2 and 18, if, that's going to be the correct answer, so let's just look at the other ones. 3 and 12, if you add it, it's going to be 15, if you subtract it, it's going to be 9. 4 and 9, if you add it, it's going to be 13. If you subtract it, it's going to be 5. These two will just give us a 0, right? Or a 12. So none of them work except for 2 and 18. If you do 2 plus 18, you're going to end up with a 20, right? So this is an indication that this is the correct answer. But what we have in our B is not 20, we have a negative 20. So what two numbers together give us a negative 20? Okay, what two numbers give us a negative 20? Let's do it like this. So 2 and 18, when they're added together, give us a negative 20, and 2 and 18, when they're multiplied together, give us a positive 36. Okay, so in order for this to be negative, a negative 18 has to be added to a negative 2. Right? So negative 2 plus negative 18 will give us a negative 20, which is correct. A negative 2 multiplied by negative 18 is the negatives cancel out and it will give us a positive 36. So that means that we have found our two factors. Right? So this means that x minus 2 multiplied by x minus 18 is the two factors of x squared minus 20x plus 36. Now the second most important thing after finding out the answer is to do the check. We have to make sure that this works out. So what we do is we multiply these two together. Negative 2 times x is going to be negative 2x. Negative 18 times x, this is up here, negative 18 times x is going to be negative 18x. And then the addition of these two together should give us a negative 20x, which should be our b. And this is correct. So this is going to be negative 20x. Now that you have the factors, x minus 2 multiplied by x minus 18 equals to 0, that means that x is equal to 2, right? Or x is equal to 18, right? Since this is equal to 0, so either x minus 2 is equal to 0, therefore x is equal to 2, or our x minus 18 is equal to 0, therefore x is equal to 18. So these are our two possible solutions for that quadratic equation. Alright, so we're going to try it again. This time we're going to go through an example where our coefficient of x squared is not equal, our coefficient of x squared is not equal to 1, right? This case it's equal to 2. It's the same general scenario, but it's a little bit more complicated. Because instead of just focusing on this number here, we have to focus on both of them. But this number is in this case, it's pretty easy, but we still have to take into account. So what are the factors of 2? In this case, the factors of 2 are 2 and 1, and 1 and 2, that's it. What about 15? Well, for 15, we've got 1 and 15. We don't have a 2, we have a 3 and a 5, and I think that's pretty much it. So, we have to end up with a plus 1x, right? So, when we open up, like I like to start out with having the brackets here and then filling them in. So this is going to be x, this is going to be x, and then this is going to be plus or minus the number. Well, in the case of 2x squared, one of these has to be a 2 and one of them has to be a 1. So I'm going to put the 2 here and I'm going to put the 1 here, right? Because 2x multiplied by 1x is going to give me 2x squared. So that solves it for this case. Now let's focus on the other numbers. What can I do? So this has to be a negative 15. Therefore, I must have, one of them has to be negative and one of them has to be positive for them to be multiplied to equal a negative 15. So if I do a negative 5 here and a positive 3 here, how will I end up? I'll end up with a 3x and a negative 5 times 2x is a negative 10x. So I know I made a mistake here because these two added together is going to equal to a negative 7x. So I know I messed up, right? I have to do some of this work in my head to try to make sense of it. Why don't I try making this a plus and this a minus? Will it work out? Let's see. If I do a minus 3x and this one becomes a 10x, I know it's still going to be a positive 7x. So I know I messed up. I could have actually figured that out without doing, going through it, but it's just to show you that it's not going to work. So why don't we try switching it around, right? So I'm going to do a plus 5 over here and a minus 3 over here. And I think you can tell that that's not going to work because this is going to be minus 3 times 2 is going to be a negative 6x, right? And this is going to be a positive 5x. But since we've done that and this is going to equal to a negative x, we need a positive x. So the obvious thing to do here would be to switch the signs, right? So that we end up with a negative 5x and a positive 6x. So here it will be positive, and then this is going to be negative, right? Negative 5 times x is going to be negative 5x, and then this will equal to a positive x, and therefore I have found my two factors, which will be 2x minus 5 multiplied by x plus 3 equals to 0. Therefore, my two solutions for x are x is equal to negative 3 or x is equal to 5 over 2. Alright? Try working through a couple of examples yourself. If you want, try to use the same examples and then try to go through it yourself. It's all a matter of technique. Once you know exactly how the technique works in terms of figuring out which factors to use, then it just becomes a matter of trial and error, and the faster you are, like the more you do it, the faster you'll get. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'll answer them as soon as I can.